Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This is episode 3, the final episode of our series on PACE plans. Episode 1 and 2 should be in one of these corners somewhere, so please be sure to check it out. Today we're going to be talking about contingencies, emergencies, and triggers. For the scenario in this episode, we're going to be using the communications plan that you've been working on, kind of talk about how it fits into the final 2 layers and how triggers work to move us up and down the layers. So let's get started. Just a quick review of episode 1 and 2. The part of the PACE plan that we went over was the primary and alternate. The details about how they work, what they do, can be found in those episodes, I think specifically episode 2. So be sure to take a look at it if you're unfamiliar with the guidelines for what should be your primary and your secondary. The real top level view of it is that the primary is your normal day-to-day operational functional tool, which for 99.999% of us will be your cellular phone. The alternate is something that is easy to use, simple, not complex, can be familiar. You can have cheat cards for it, whatever it may be, and it could be a GMRS radio that can be set up to use a local GMRS repeater. So that's kind of how a real high level look at your primary and alternate. Contingency is still defined, and it's still a dependable part of the layer. Just some considerations to think about the contingency plan is that it's slower, less convenient, limited, and possibly more complicated. The takeaway is that it still gets the job done. So you can think of contingency as, I can still operate, it's just not the way that I want to. Now, as we look at what examples may fill that, we may see portable repeaters, we may see moving to simplex operations with our radios, or another type of alternate communication system. Emergency is different. Emergency is your last resort option. It is no longer about convenience or efficiency. Emergency is about being able to maintain coordination with your group. Think of emergency as, I no longer can rely on normal communications methods, but I still have a way to move forward. This could be something as rally points, face-to-face coordination conversations, or a runner system. These allow us to keep the mission moving forward, to keep our group still in a means to communicate. Keep in mind that we are seeing our plan shift from maintaining communication to maintaining coordination. This is a distinction because we want to make sure that as we build our plan out, that we understand we are going to be having this transition in our plan. When you look at this and you look at how contingency and emergency are fitting into the plan, you see that the shift is moving less to rely on communication methods and more to rely on how do we coordinate, how do we maintain group coordination. When you're designing your PACE plan, when people are designing PACE plans, they may come up with something that kind of looks like this. It goes from your cell phone to your GMRS to another radio to another radio. And that's not really a plan. That is a list of cool equipment. What we want to do is we want to have a plan that looks something a little bit more like this. We have our cell phone. Why do we move to our alternate? We have an event where cellular has been unreliable for a period of time, such as 30 minutes. At that point, we move to alternate. The alternate to contingency, the GMRS repeater that we have set up and have been using goes down and is no longer a viable solution for communication. We now move to our contingency. The point in this is you're seeing that the triggers that we're going to talk about here in a minute are the part of the plan that really add the functionality. The equipment adds the tools, but now we're going to talk about the procedures and the functionality of how we move through the layers in both directions. The PACE plan helps us answer these questions. When do we move? Why do we move? How do we know when to move forward or move back? And that is the key point of these triggers. The thing to keep in mind about triggers is we are trying to set up a measurable, definable means that we can test to move between the different layers, whether that's moving primary to alternate, alternate to contingency, contingency to alternate. We have a set of defined terms, defined metrics that everybody knows and can look at and understand what they are. So it doesn't become an issue of, well, I felt that it was getting scary, so we needed to do something. That's not how you want your PACE plan to function. You want your PACE plan to function off of a set of known metrics, such as the cellular goes down for 30 minutes or whatever that time frame may be. At that point, that is the metric that is met. Everybody knows that now cellular is considered no longer reliable. We are moving to alternate, which is our GMRS repeater. We may have another situation to where we have a transition between alternate and contingency, such as the GMRS repeater goes down. Part of your system needs to make sure that you understand how that transition works and how to control that transition, which we'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. When we talk about our PACE plan, we talk about equipment, but we also talk about the procedures. And that's something that we really need to pay attention to when we're developing our PACE plan, is looking at each of the different layers and looking at the procedural changes between each of them to make sure we understand what they are, how they're going to function, how they're going to flow, and that they're doing exactly what we need them to do. For example, in our primary normal day-to-day operations, there's really not a lot of procedure there. We just go on about and enjoy life. As we get to alternate, again, in the beginning, this is nothing real big. We just move over to our alternate. We may have a scheduled check-in on that GMRS repeater just to make sure that we know that everybody we want to talk to has switched over, their equipment is working right, and is there anybody that needs help getting their equipment up and running on the alternate. The contingency, well, let me back up for a second here. On the alternate, as it continues on, as stress builds up, we may want to start to shift it over into something of a more structured communications system. And that is something you need to decide based on your group. On do you need to make a transition from it being more of an open communications forum into something more quasi-net control as your duration on the repeater continues, say, after 2 hours? That is something that you'll have to come up with and your group will have to decide as you're looking at your PACE plan. Your contingency plan, when you move over to that layer, you may decide that, hey, at this point, we are going to have a net control. We are going to have something more structured to where we have simplex frequencies that are for group members and we have frequencies that are more for team leaders. We may have to decide who is going to be net control, who is going to tell people where they need to communicate, and who is going to maintain the flow of traffic. These are the kind of things that you need to look at and organize in your PACE plan that start to develop the meat of it, the procedural part of it. The emergency level of it is where we may start to develop the need to have the rally points. To everybody who has a copy of the PACE plan will know that, hey, our first rally point is at the corner of X and Y. Our next rally point is on this street at this mile marker, whatever it may be. So these are the types of things in your PACE plan that are defined, that everybody understands and everybody knows, so there is not a level of panic. The takeaway from this is that we want the procedures in place through our plan, through the use of our equipment, so that we know how we're going to function at each layer of the plan. We want everybody to know how to move, when to move, what we do, so there's no guesswork, there's no space for panic. Everybody understands the plan. Everybody has a plan. Just as important as defining when we move down to the next layer, when we move from primary to alternate or alternate to contingency, contingency to emergency, is how do we move back? What is the metric that helps us move back? This is just as critical so that we don't have lost sheep as we're moving between these different layers. It's easy when people make a decision that they think is based on the metric that, hey, I should move back to the repeater because I think I heard some static there. Now they're on a repeater that has not been deemed reliable because in your procedure, you have it set up so that somebody is monitoring that repeater, such as net control or an assistant to net control, and they've started a clock. And they know that when that repeater has hit a certain time frame as being up and being steady, because trust me, there's times when these repeaters come back online and they fall right back down again. And this could happen 2 or 3 times depending on what it takes to get it back up and running. So you want to make sure that you're measuring it and make sure that you have somebody who is ready to let the group know when it is ready and available. Most people think the PACE plan, as we've just went over, is exactly a list of backup things that we use to do something. As you can see through these episodes, that a PACE plan is much more than that. It has so much more potential, so much more capability. Understanding it and using it is not hard. It's just information that a lot of people don't think about in depth. And that's what we are hoping that we've given you by spending this time with you, is an understanding and a better confidence in how to use a PACE plan, how to develop a PACE plan. And again, if you have questions, comments, ideas, put them down below so that as a team we can go through them, we can look at them and discuss them and help each other through how to make a better PACE plan. I am by no way, sense, or form saying that the information I presented here is the only way and the best way. I'm saying that I'm wanting you to think about it. I'm wanting you to come up with your ideas for your PACE plan, how to use it as a tool to decide what equipment you want to include in your PACE plan, to decide when to move, why to move, what to do next, how to transition between the different layers back and forth. That's the information I want you to take away from this. Is I am not trying to tell you how to build your plan. I'm giving you the tools so you can build your plan. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I know these videos can be long, but I think the information is valuable. And as we progress through some of our other PACE plans, you'll now have a foundation to understand what each of the layers are, why the transitions are what they are, and how you can use these plans that we share with you to build your own, to make your own better. And that is our whole goal in this, is so that we all get better, we all grow, we all improve. I want you to think about each other. I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to exercise. I want you to sleep well. I want you to eat well. I want you to remember that there are those that you love and that love you that are counting on you to take care of them. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much.